on paper, and exactly why Rybakina should be paying very close attention. Start with what happened in Rome, because understanding the loss properly is the only way to understand why Berlin opens a different door. That match was played on slow, heavy clay at the Foro Italico, a surface that does two things Eala cannot afford. It gives her opponent extra time to read her shots, and it demands a serving platform that generates its own free points. Eala had neither working for her that day. Rybakina broke her 4 times. 4 times. That is not a tight match. That is a player being systematically dismantled on serve. Eala's ground game actually competed. She hung in rallies, redirected well off the backhand side, and created angles that troubled Rybakina during stretches of both sets. But none of it mattered because the serve kept handing back the pressure she had earned from the baseline. When you hold only 67% of first serves in and win just 57% of those points, you're essentially asking your opponent to do nothing except wait. Rybakina is very good at waiting. But there is a critical detail hidden inside that Rome loss that most analysis has ignored. The match lasted an hour and 32 minutes. That is not a blowout pace for a straight sets loss. Eala was in the match. She went down 1-3 in the first set and clawed back to 4-4 before Rybakina broke her again to serve out the set. In the second, Eala held to make it 2-2 and was competitive until the 5th game when 2 double faults in a single service game effectively ended the contest. The margins were there. They were just razor thin, and every time those margins appeared, the serve gave them away. Now fast forward through a month that reshaped Eala's grass court identity. She arrived in Birmingham for the WTA125 event as the top seed and played some of the cleanest tennis of her season. Priscilla Hahn was dispatched 6-0, 6-2. Alina Kariva fell 6-2, 7-5. Maninkaya Sawenki went down 6-3, 6-2 in the quarters. Rebecca Mazarova pushed her to 3 sets in the semis, but Eala found a way through 6-2, 4-6, 6-3. Then came the final against her own doubles partner, Nikola Bartankova, and this is where something genuinely interesting happened. Eala lost the first set 5-7. In previous versions of her career, that kind of opening might have triggered a spiral. On clay this season, first set losses had been terminal. But on grass in Birmingham, she reset. She took the second 6-3, then survived a nervy decider 7-5 to claim the title. That is 5 matches won in a week, including a 3-set final against a player who knows her game as well as anyone on tour. The title itself matters for the ranking points and the confidence it injects, but what matters more for the Rybakina matchup is the texture of those wins. Eala was not overpowering opponents. She was constructing points, varying her patterns, coming forward at chosen moments, and when the serve wobbled, she found other ways to hold. Then queens happened, and the narrative got complicated. Eala opened with a smooth 6-3, 6-2 win over Zhang Shuai, extending her grass court winning streak to 6 matches. The ball was popping off her strings. The serve looked composed. Everything pointed toward a deep run. Then Iva Jovic walked onto court in the second round and demolished her 6-2, 6-2 in barely over an hour. It was the kind of loss that makes you question everything. Was Birmingham a mirage, just a smaller field and weaker opposition padding the record? Was the serve improvement real, or was it cosmetic, visible only against players who did not punish it hard enough? Those are fair questions. But here is what I think the Jovic loss actually revealed. Jovic, ranked 19th in the world, is one of the best ball strikers on tour at age 19. She plays with a tempo and aggression that Eala has consistently struggled against this season. Karolina Muchova did the same thing in Miami. Coco Gauff did it earlier. There is a tier of player whose sheer pace off the ground compresses Eala's decision-making window to almost nothing, and when that happens, the serve collapses under the accumulated pressure. Jovic is in that tier. Rybakina is in that tier too, no question. But the difference between Jovic at Queens and Rybakina in Berlin comes down to one thing that changes everything on grass: the return. Rybakina is an extraordinary server. She averaged 7.2 aces per match over the last 52 weeks going into this tournament. She holds serve at an elite rate. But here is the thing people forget about Rybakina's game. Her return, while solid, is not her primary weapon. She is not Jovic, who attacks the return with early timing and flat pace. Rybakina's return game functions more as a platform from which she waits for the rally to develop, then deploys her power from the baseline. On clay, that works perfectly because the surface gives her time. On grass, where the ball skids low and arrives faster, the return game of a serve-dominant player often dips. Rybakina's own Queen's Club campaign showed exactly this. She needed a monumental comeback to survive Tatiana Maria in the second round, trailing by a set and 4-5 in the second before winning 9 consecutive games. Then in the quarterfinals, Katie Boulter beat her 7-5, 2-6, 6-4 in a match where Rybakina's return game struggled to find rhythm against Boulter's improved serving. 2 matches on grass this season, 1 dramatic escape and 1 loss. That is not the profile of a player cruising into Berlin on autopilot. Now look at the tactical geometry of this specific matchup on grass. Eala is left-handed. This gets underestimated constantly in match analysis, but it reshapes the entire court dynamic, especially on serve. Her lefty slice serve swings wide on the deuce court, pulling the returner off the court and opening up space for the next ball. On clay, that swing is partially neutralized because the surface gives the returner time to recover. On grass, the ball stays low and kicks sideways. Against a player like Rybakina, who stands deep on the return and trusts her length and timing, Eala's wide lefty serve becomes a genuine weapon. It is not just about the ace. It is about the geometry of the second shot, the open court that exists after the returner has been pulled wide, and the short rally patterns that favor Eala's aggressive positioning. Look at the Vekic match for evidence. Eala served 7 aces, her highest total of the season, and committed just 2 double faults. She saved 12 of 14 breakpoints. 12 of 14. That is the kind of serving performance that wins matches against top players. The critical moment came at 5-4 in the second set, serving for the match. Vekic surged to 0-40, triple breakpoint, and the old version of Eala might have crumbled. Instead, she saved all 3, finishing with 2 unreturnable serves. Afterward, she said something revealing. I told myself that she's fighting back, but I am also a fighter. I decide before I serve. That phrase, I decide before I serve, is a mental framework that either holds or collapses against Rybakina. If it holds, Eala has the serving platform to stay in the match. If it collapses, we are back in Rome. Here's the other factor nobody is discussing enough. Rybakina has not won a title on grass since Wimbledon 2022. For years. She has reached quarterfinals and semifinals. She has competed at a high level, but the grass court title cupboard has been empty since that famous fortnight at the All England Club. Her overall 2026 has been phenomenal, a 32-9 record, the Australian Open title, Stuttgart, the Indian Wells final. But the last 6 weeks tell a more complicated story. She lost to Anastasia Potapova in the 4th round of Madrid. She lost to Elena Svitolina in the Rome quarterfinals after converting just 4 of 20 breakpoints. Then came the early exit at Roland Garros, stunned in the second round by Yulia Starodutseva, her earliest Grand Slam loss since the 2024 Australian Open. And at Queen's, the Boulter defeat. That is 4 tournaments, 4 losses, each one exposing a slightly different vulnerability. Madrid was about mental fatigue and deciding sets. Rome was about breakpoint conversion. Paris was about flat-footed tennis against a player with nothing to lose. London was about an opponent who matched her serving power and then outcompeted her in the rallies. Does this mean Rybakina is in crisis? Absolutely not. A player with a 32-9 season record and 2 titles does not get labeled as struggling. But it means she arrives in Berlin with less certainty than her ranking implies. The aura of the Australian Open champion is real, but auras do not win points. What wins points on grass is the serve, the first 2 shots, and the ability to control the net. Rybakina has the serve. She always will. But her movement to the net has been sporadic this season, and her first strike tennis has been less decisive since the hard court swing ended. There is one more element worth examining, and it is psychological rather than tactical. In Rome, Eala was the climber. She had just beaten Wang Xinyu to reach the third round of a WTA 1000 for the first time on clay, and there was a sense that the Rybakina match was a bonus round. Nice to be here, not expected to win. That framing is comfortable, but it is also limiting. When you play with house money, you accept defeat too easily. Eala competed in Rome, but I am not sure she truly believed she could win. The serving stats suggest a player performing under constraint, someone managing the match rather than attacking it. Berlin changes the internal equation. Eala has now won a grass court title. She has beaten a player in Vekic who just won the Queen's Club Championships. Her grass court record in 2026 sits at 7 wins and 1 loss, a winning percentage of nearly 90%. She is not climbing anymore. She is standing on this surface. The question is whether standing translates into the kind of assertive, front-foot tennis required to trouble someone like Rybakina. What does Eala need to do tactically to give herself a real chance? 3 things. First, the first serve percentage must stay above 65%. In Rome, it was 67, but the quality of placement was poor, with too many serves drifting into Rybakina's hitting zone. On grass, Eala needs to direct a higher proportion of first serves to the wide positions, exploiting the lefty angle that the surface amplifies. Second, she needs to shorten the rallies. Rybakina's ground game becomes more dangerous as rallies extend past 4 shots. On clay in Rome, the average rally length naturally stretched, playing into Rybakina's hands. On grass, Eala needs to approach the net after short balls, something she did effectively against Vekic, but has historically been reluctant to commit to against higher-ranked opponents. Third, and this is the hardest one, she needs to attack Rybakina's second serve. Rybakina's first serve is borderline unreturnable at times, but her second serve, while well-placed, lacks the sheer pace of her first. Eala's return game is actually one of her relative strengths. She wins 35.5% of return games this season, a respectable number for her ranking. On grass, where the second serve sits up slightly and the returner can step in, there is an opening. Can she pull it off? Here is what I genuinely believe. Rybakina remains the clear favorite. Her serve is a weapon that Eala has never faced at this velocity on this surface, and if Rybakina comes out firing aces the way she did against Maria at Queen's, Eala may never get a foothold. But the window is wider than it was in Rome. It is wider because the surface rewards Eala's first strike instincts. It is wider because Rybakina's recent form on grass has been imperfect. It is wider because Eala's serving, for the first time in her career, showed genuine composure under pressure against a quality opponent in the Vekic match. And it is wider because this is not a bonus round anymore. Eala knows she belongs on this surface. Birmingham proved it. The Vekic result confirmed it. The match is scheduled for tomorrow at the Steffi Graf Stadion, and the entire architecture of it comes down to the opening service games. If Eala holds her first 2 service games cleanly, she sends Rybakina a signal that the Rome template does not apply here. If Rybakina breaks early, the match likely follows the same pattern it did on clay, controlled from the front, finished without drama. Tennis at this level is decided in sequences of 2 or 3 points, and those sequences are decided by what happens between a player's ears before the ball is even tossed. I keep coming back to what Eala said after the Vekic match. I decide before I serve. That is a line that sounds simple, almost unremarkable. But it describes the single most important skill in professional tennis, the ability to commit to a plan under pressure and execute it without revision mid-motion. Every server in the world can do it in practice. Very few can do it at triple break point on grass against someone who just won a 500-level title the previous week. Eala did it. Tomorrow she has to do it against someone significantly more dangerous, someone with a Grand Slam title on this exact surface.